The establishment is so shook that an indie film, an apolitical film, based on a true story with a virtuous message of stopping child trafficking, the fact that it's been an outright success, like these are the numbers from Friday, okay? Obviously, we don't have any of the numbers out for today, but it'll suffice by showing that even though it placed third on the day, then also showing it, since its release, obviously it winning Tuesday, having good carryover on Wednesday, Thursday, and then rebounding quite well on Friday, it just goes to show that word of mouth is still what carries the day when it comes to the cinema. If you want to go back and you want to run it back with Indiana Derp and the Derp of Derpstiny, you can see the fall off and the lack of rebound is stunning, man. And given the fact that, Insidious 28 is now going to end up taking the weekend, more on that in the next video, that just shows you that the audience hasn't gone anywhere for films. They just want to see films that have something to say instead of being subjected to preachy messaging and content for the sake of content. And the media, the establishment, they're taking note, and we know exactly what they're trying to push. CNN is demanding no one see Sound of Freedom. They're saying that the movie will make more QAnon somehow. The pro-pedo media are terrified of the masses seeing this film. Well, what are they talking about here? Let's play the clip.
And you seem pretty familiar with him because he doesn't really hide his association with this real wild plot that involves, drinking the blood of children and things like that.
Who are you talking about specifically? Hollywood QAnon promoters movie is a hit at a box office. It's so funny, right? Because, oh my gosh, what is that? Not even like 20 years ago. Did you know the political affiliations of anybody who was creating the films that you actually liked? One of my favorite films, Gladiator. I don't know the political persuasions of Russell Crowe. Ridley Scott, don't really much care about it. Who wrote it? It really didn't even much matter. Goodfellas, Francis Ford Coppola? No idea. I know that Marlon Brando, he made his political messaging first and foremost, but he didn't deride his audience. Al Pacino? Well, the only thing that we really know about him is he loves himself some young bucks. That just puts him in the win column for me. But why is it? Why is it you want to tear down a film that people are liking? Don't know if it's good or not. Frankly, I'm probably never going to see it. But you're trying to drag it on political basis. But then at the same time, when Roman Polanski will go out there and they'll put out a film, everybody will just stand and applaud for the man who did unspeakable horrors to a 13-year-old boy in the bathtub back in the 80s. Don't worry about though, Chinatown's a masterpiece, of course. It only seems to come one way because they want to control how you think, and now they can see so many people are waking up to so many uncomfortable truths. Well, now they're just going covert instead of staying in the shadows, being overt about the persuasion. Now they're just trying to put the propaganda on blast.
No, he doesn't hide it at all. And you have a lot of people who are in this world of QAnon who say,
Mike Rothschild. No shit. Author, the storm is upon us. How QAnon became a movement. When was the last time you heard about that shit? I thought it died a death back on January 6th or January 5th even. Trust the plan, and then guess what? The plan didn't work. But Trump will be back any day now. He's gonna retake off, and whatever the fucking calendar was. I don't think anybody actually talks about that shit anymore. Except for the people over in mass media. They want to continue to pump that out there the exact same way that they want to say that January 6th was worse than 9/11 times 5 or times 109 in this guy's case. Anyways.
They don't know what that is. They've never heard of it. They're just asking questions. With somebody like Jim Caviezel, he is openly embracing it. He's openly using it.
Jim Caviezel. Oh, okay, cool. So that's who they are talking about, the star of the film. A guy who just espouses conservative views. Okay, I guess. But yeah, anybody who's to the right of Chairman Mao is all of a sudden a QAnon right-wing extremist. Of course.
Its catchphrases and its concepts. He's speaking at QAnon conventions. And this film is being marketed to either specific QAnon believers or to people who believe all of the same tenets as QAnon.
Oh, okay. Marketing it towards QAnon believers or people who are susceptible to that. So you know what you need to do? You need to shield your mind and only listen to everything that you see in Hollywood. Okay, everything that the establishment wants you to believe. All right then. Okay.
but claim they don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah, right.
And The Sound of Freedom does focus on a real issue of sex trafficking.
Yeah, a real life story. So that's who. Okay, so now you're trying to also paint that, freeing kids from child slavery, from sex trafficking, that's a specific issue that only the right, only the QAnon people care about. That's a weird cell phone that you want to have there, but I wouldn't expect anything less from a Rothschild.
But that theme, it's sort of like that kernel of truth that feeds the QAnon conspiracy theory. Tell us how those two things work together.
Okay.
Sure. And the most durable and the most believable conspiracy theories are not entirely false. There's something in them that is true, and the
Yeah, like it's a true story. Oh my God.
rest of it is false. But the believers point to the one true thing, and they say, oh, you don't believe that this particular thing is true.
So funny that the purveyors of fake news, some of the strongest ones that were out there, how many segments did they run on Russiagate? Oh, interesting. Now they're going to tell us how you can go out there and spot the lies. Isn't this kind of shitting where you eat by exposing the game that you guys specifically profit off of? But look at this guy. He writes a QAnon book. He has a Rise of QAnon podcast. This guy right here is a professional smear merchant. I wouldn't expect anything less from CNN.
In terms of child trafficking, we know trafficking is real. We know it has real victims. No one is denying that. But these films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites and only.
No, it's about the South American cartels, traffic, and oh my, you don't even know. But this is the talking point. If you guys want to watch the rest of this clip, I'll go ahead and link it in the description because it really doesn't, he's just circular talking points. It's all ridiculous, but this is the mass media talking point when it comes to this film, okay? And the biggest rag, and of course you knew that they were going to chime in, they're just getting the most inflammatory when it comes to putting out the certain rhetoric. Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. What are you talking about? Oh, right, because if you don't think correctly, obviously there's something wrong with you, okay? Because the establishment mass media, they're the ones who know the truth, okay? You're not allowed to ask questions. It's the media. They have all the answers. Stop asking questions. Just listen and believe. And if you don't believe with the standard line, well, clearly there's something wrong with you. You're dirty. You're unwell. You're diseased. You are carrying parasites. We're getting dangerously close to some real genocidal rhetoric. Don't believe me? Go take a look at the few steps that are there. The QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer. And this is from Rolling Stone. Like CNN, one of the biggest purveyors of false accusations and fake news. Remember when they published the UVA rape hoax? Yeah, I certainly do. Liars. Professional liars. We'll read a little bit of this and see if it follows on with one of the Rothschilds we're talking about. Based on a true story I heard from somewhere across the theater, the familiar words had appeared on the screen, and an elderly man was taking it upon himself to read them aloud to the rest of the sizable audience seated for the matinee showing of the anti-child-trafficking thriller Sound of Freedom. Yeah, starring Jim Caviezel. For the seasoned moviegoers, this phrase is a joke. Oh, okay. We know that the cinema will stretch almost any truth to the breaking point, and rank insincerity of such a pronouncement as the foundation of a prankish opening titles of Fargo. But this crowd, I could tell, would view the events depicted over the next 2+ hours as entirely literal. See, I'm so much smarter than everybody else. You should be fucking, shaking a snifter of brandy, this fucking self-entitled, fill in the blanks. But yeah, okay. And like it was pointed out in the previous video clip, there's a little air of truth when it comes to that. Yes, obviously, based on a true story. A lot can be swept away on that. And when people cite movies specifically in order to prove their point, it's like, it's a work of fiction, right? And it's like, oh, okay, but it said based on a true story. Yeah. more of the good information that you can get are normally from pretty dry documentaries, and understandably so. But yeah, if it's based on a true story and it's about, oh, I don't know, breaking up anti-child trafficking rings, and, you know, you need to get a little bit hyperbolic and dramatized when it comes to telling the story in order to fit it on a screen, yeah, that totally makes sense. But you know why the establishment is so shook? Because ever since its inception, Hollywood has been staffed by communists, collectivists that want to tell you how to think instead of you thinking specifically for yourself. And that's why they're so shook by this, because people are flocking to this independent film that really probably didn't have the lofty expectations that it's met and eclipsed at this point. I'll be very interested to see how it ends up shaking out through the rest of the week, because it obviously not going to have much legs after this, but that's totally fine. It'll be a cult film. It'll continue on in perpetuity, and there can be a little nuggets of wisdom dropped for executives to figure out, oh, okay, what made this film ever so popular? Oh, a relatable story, an interesting topic, and positive marketing where they don't openly hate their audience, or even at all, so it would seem. It was all built on the back of goodwill and word of mouth. And that's why mass media is so shook, because yes, they've had the specific control and domain outside of a couple of outliers, but realistically, they don't matter in the grand scheme of things. When all of the studio heads have a specific message that they want to tell you, and the moment somebody starts to break through and eclipse one of their tentpole franchises in Indiana Jones, well, of course you know that they're gonna lash out. This is what you get in the dying days of these institutions. They're in their death throes right now. That's why they're just blaming everybody else instead of taking responsibility for their terrible actions that have led their industry to fall into such disrepair. No. It's not us who are out of touch. It's each and every one of you. You all have brainworms. You are all QAnon conspiracy theorists for wanting to go and see a movie about why South American drug cartels are so powerful when it comes to sex trafficking. Why that's not something that's been taken so seriously, because it's based on a true story. There could be some facts out there. Obviously, some people are going to watch the story and see if there's a whole lot of validity to this, what the equivalent is in real life, piece two and two together, and wonder, oh, wow, something like this is actually going on. Nobody wants to do anything about it. And, because this is something that actually did happen and it had to go out to a third party, why isn't the government taking this seriously? Why is mass media so against such a good topic? It's because they have an agenda. And mostly kind of really has to do with the whole child trafficking thing. And the government doesn't really want any competition. So if you would just shut up, watch the schlock that they've been putting in the cinemas for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you would be easily moldable, and they wouldn't have to resort to the stick so often. There was a time when stars of yesteryear would be on an interview show, go out and give a speech. People would listen to them because there was some mystique to them. Thanks to social media and the ever-present interview show, there was more opportunity to see these actors and actresses put forward in order to promote a film, have their ideas explored, and in the case of Jim Caviezel, hence why this film was so successful, it's because people could relate to him. He didn't seem like somebody who would bend bow or break to Hollywood's whims, which is why he's not a A-level action star, why he didn't get all the roles after the blockbuster that was Passion of the Christ. It's because he was going to be a conservative dude, and he wasn't going to go ahead and compromise his values and principles for the sake of fame and fortune, which is something, unfortunately, that we cannot say about one of Hollywood's really good success stories. Okay, one capitalized second chance. Listen, man, I like Robert Downey Jr. as much as the next person. Okay, I remember watching Iron Man 2008. Still think that that's probably, it's like, when it comes to MCU films, at least ones that they want to take dominion over, it's the best one, I think. I'm pretty sure it is. It's either that or Avengers. The first one. They go back and forth in my mind, but Iron Man's a classic. And then even beforehand, back when he was, party hardy, Robert Downey Jr., getting thrown into the clink, he was that dude. And he is somebody who is also given a lot of credit to Mel Gibson for his recovery and staying sober. But recently, he also posted a picture where he was like, I'm a proud vegan. And it's like, oh my God, he's dying of AIDS. And it's like, oh, no. And then for him, in promotion of his new film, Oppenheimer, where he's apparently, playing some German some kraut that came over during, Operation Paperclip to work on the bomb. He's saying that men start wars and the entire planet should be a matriarchy. This is the exact opposite type of promotion that Sound of Freedom benefited from. It's like, there's so many avenues we can walk this down, but let's hear what he had to say on this. Okay. Robert Downey Jr., who plays Louis Strauss in Christopher Nolan's upcoming Oppenheimer film, recently declared he believes the entire planet should be a matriarchy after filming the movie. Yeah, I'm sure that there are tribes that have tried that, tried to be matriarchies, but guess what? They get wiped out by every other fucking patriarchy that's out there. Matriarchies don't work, because if you just think about it. Think about this. Throughout the history of the entire world, okay, in documented history, you would have to think at one point in time, one civilization would rise up and be a matriarchy. You would think that. Some colony somewhere, having bitches run everything. But why don't we hear about them now? Why are there no successful matriarchies out there right now? Because they all fucking failed. So yeah, now that everything's, it's still the best time to be alive at any point in time throughout history, okay? And then tomorrow is going to be a better day than that, and so on and so forth. So at this point in time right now, you want to put women in charge? Because we have such sterling examples as Sanna Marin in Finland, who would better be suited for being a bottle girl as opposed to being a prime minister. Jacinda Ardern, who basically turned her country into a dictatorship until people were like, well, we gave the bitch a chance. And no, fuck off. Angela Merkel, who ended up compromising her country and allowing them to be subject to a Russian energy. And we all know how that ended up going over the past winter. You heard all the stories about the soaring energy prices, and it wasn't until the European Union ended up striking a deal with Saudi Arabia, which is lauded for its human and female rights, in order to stifle some of that rampant inflation. Or, hey, take a look at the UK over the past couple of years. The UK has had 3 female prime ministers. One, roaring success, Margaret Thatcher. And then, then you had 2, and just about with a big Boris Johnson asterisk in the middle, including the shortest reign of a prime minister of all time, and Liz Truss. You had 2 resign in disgrace because their feelings got upset and they couldn't do an adequate job. Yeah, it's almost like when you put women in charge, shit ultimately ends up failing. I mean, you can point to what, Queen Elizabeth, okay, Queen Victoria, a couple of examples of monarchs doing great things back in the cut. But even still, the monarchy, it was set up as a patriarchal system. So you might have women running that stuff, but the moment that they start to change any of the machinery behind it, the institution falls apart. But okay, even if you want to take it to a more granular level, which is something else that I was thinking about the moment that I read this headline, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay, men start wars and the entire planet should be a matriarchy. Well, okay, you take a look at the saber rattlers. We'll take a look at, the United States, okay? Remember, Donald Trump was going to plunge the world into a gigantic nuclear apocalypse, right? He was going to go to war with North Korea, with Russia at his side because he's Putin's puppet. What happened during those 4 years? Absolutely no new wars. Withdrawal in the Middle East was already underway. NATO was paying their fair share. Everything was copacetic and fine. But remember, Orange Man bad. And the moment that, what is the biggest voting bloc for the Democrats outside of the dead? Oh, right. Single females. Oh, the female vote that was out there. The ones that should be in charge. But when you give them a voice, when you let them control the levers of power, what do they end up doing? Putting the warmongers in place. Ta-da! It's almost like you put the emotional sex in charge and you end up getting emotional results. Veganism is a fucking disease, and Robert Downey Jr. is the perfect example. In a recent interview about the upcoming film with the Associated Press, the outlet asked, I was curious if you took away any, commentary on patriarchy and war. Downey Jr. responded, men start wars and the entire planet should be a matriarchy, but I've never changed position on that. Oh my god, just try to virtue signal. Like, dude, you were so based. What happened? When asked if he already had that going into the film, he replied, well, this was just a triple confirmation. Well, it's not quite how you spell earlier, but I get the sentiment. Downey Jr. stated, context is so critical. In the timing of the Manhattan Project, the need for it, the deployment of it, necessary or not, you can read plenty of data that would support either. But regardless, why can be debated, but here and Oh, but here we are now. That's the cold, hard truth. So, being able to, under Christopher Nolan's direction, to kind of invite an audience to be involved in this type of mediation. It's kind of, we all know the films of the past 50 years that have kind of been important in a way, as well as entertaining and thrilling and just cool to watch. You know, ones that are, what was that? Oh, to just run this back full circle, the ones that are based on a true story. Just listen and believe this one, because our actors, our producers, our directors will come out and they'll tell you what the media wants you to hear. And I guess that's the transcendent thing about certain films. And I got to be in one. Yeah, so see, this one right here, it's gonna be important because it'll reaffirm that we need more women in charge, because women won't start wars. You get what you fucking deserve. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.